Hey guys, welcome back to That Florida Feeling. Thanks for coming back for another episode. I hope you guys have had a great week. Thank you for the interactions on the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. You guys are amazing. I love that you guys interact with the polls and the questions. We apparently all do love the west coast of Florida. It's where most of our favorite cities are. I want to give a shout out to Caitlin. She is amazing. She suggested a future episode topic and showed some love on the Facebook page. It was great to get to talk to you, Caitlin. I do want to bring to everybody's attention that it is hurricane season and Elsa is coming to Florida. And no, I don't mean she has times in the Magic Kingdom. So if you haven't started your hurricane prep, this is probably a good time. Don't get caught unprepared. Even if she does miss us or it doesn't turn out to be anything major, just go ahead and get prepared, guys. Just do it. I'm sure that she just wants to go to Disney World, but we can't be sure about her stops on the way. So just wanted to point that out, that it is hurricane season and it's here. So are you guys ready to take another whirlwind tour of Florida? Because we're going to talk about all the weird, wacky, cute, and roadside attractions that make up Florida and all of its history of tourism. Florida's always been known for tourism, especially the theme parks that have set up home here and all the wonderful beaches. But before that, Florida kind of had its own different attractions. Of course, people have always visited Florida year-round for our beautiful gardens, the fresh springs, a look at the wildlife, or just to get away from the cold. I don't blame them. I'm not a fan of cold. I get it. And what's really cool is that Florida used their own natural resources to set up these attractions that are outside of the diners and the hotels and the theme parks. So when we think of roadside attractions, we think of the interstates now. But back then, they set along the main roadways at the time. And this is before the interstates. And this is the days of tourism when it really started to boom, starting in the 1920s. So a lot of attractions are set up on what we would consider highways or back roads now. So like US 1, US 27, US 41. Like I said, these are the days before the interstates. The 2-lane roads, the little stands that dotted them, the old Florida. And they became home to so many different attractions. You have to admit, though, there is something charming about all these little stops outside of what was considered big cities then and small towns that still make up the towns today. And all the little back roads that just create great memories. And they can range from small fruit stands, which we still see today, to museums, historical sites, gardens, and pretty much everything in between that just gave people a place to stop, to rest, to learn about new things, or to make great memories. And we've all gone to these places where it might be a little outdated, a little quirky, probably a topic you never even thought about, but it just seemed like something good to do on a boring, rainy, or in Florida's case, super hot afternoon, just to get out from underneath the sun and, do something different. And I love these kind of places. They turn out to be so much fun usually. And we're going to talk about the ones that are all over Florida. I found a bunch of them on Atlas Obscura. Thanks, Jamie, for that one. And we're going to talk about some I've been to myself. Some of these I had never heard of, so it was fun to learn about new places. So the first attraction we're going to talk about today is in historic old Northeast neighborhood in St. Pete. And it's the Sunken Gardens. If they sound familiar, it's because they're still there today. The gardens are absolutely beautiful. They're botanical gardens that actually do sit below sea level. And you're probably thinking, doesn't most of Florida sit below sea level? Well, we're right at sea level. But these do actually truly sit about 10 feet below sea level. And they are one of the oldest roadside attractions in the U.S. The gardens do give a glimpse into the 1930s Florida. It gives us a glimpse of roadside attraction history and the culture that it produced in Florida and how important it was to bring people with tourism and new ways of life, especially since this started during the Depression. They are the oldest roadside attraction, though, on the west coast of Florida. George Turner Sr. bought the land to the gardens in 1903, and it contained a shallow lake which does sit 10 feet below sea level. Well, he drained the lake and then created his own sunken garden from the lake bed, and you can still go enjoy it to this day. He planted papayas and citrus fruit, all kinds of exotic plants that all enjoyed the rich soil from the former lake bed. And he created a nursery, and he began to sell the produce from the plants. And then he realized that people wanted to walk through his garden, so he started charging a nickel. He eventually realized that so many people were coming to the gardens that he fenced them in and began to charge a little bit more, in creating a first roadside attraction. The gardens did gain popularity, and from the 1950s to the 1970s, it was continuously ranked among Florida's top tourist attractions. They had a gift shop and a wax museum, anything to add to the experience. Now, the family did run the gardens until they sold them to St. Pete in 1999, and the city of St. Pete runs them today. You can still visit the gardens to see the floral and fauna that sit among the pools and waterfalls, the original plants and some that have been added. They even have a Japanese garden, a cactus garden, a butterfly garden. Not going to go to that part, but you guys can. And even a flock of flamingos to welcome visitors to the gardens. They have educational programs for people of all ages and even teach you about horticulture if you want to start your own garden. You can visit the gardens most days with the exception of a few holidays and explore the wonder that is hidden within St. Pete. And it is kind of hidden. I definitely recommend going. It's beautiful. But if you don't find it the first time, just turn around and try it again. It is in a neighborhood. The cost is $12 for adults, $10 for adults over 62, and $6 for kids. And they remain one of the last roadside attractions from original old Florida. Definitely a place to check out. Definitely something cool to do on a Florida afternoon or morning, I guess. I don't know. Either way, it's definitely one of those places that you want to check out and you'll never forget. The next place we're going to talk about is one that I've mentioned before. We're going to talk about Dinosaur World. I mentioned it in one of our other episodes, and it's between Tampa and Orlando in a town called Plant City. It's right off of I-4. And it's called the world's largest dinosaur park. And it's been open since 1998. The park features 150 life-size sculptures, and the park is actually part of a chain of dinosaur-themed parks, which I didn't realize this. The others are in Texas and Kentucky. Of course, Florida's is the best. Why wouldn't it be, right? The main draw of the park is that it shows dinosaurs set in their natural vegetation or water to simulate the real-life environment. You kind of really do get to feel like what it would be to walk among the dinosaurs without them hunting you or stepping on you or anything like that. Now, the park does sit on what used to be Gator World, so that kind of adds to the swampy look and the natural vegetation. And that really was the goal of the park, was to put people in the time of the dinosaurs. They even have little signs that tell you about the vegetation of what would have been around at the time of dinosaurs. And I'm sure that there's a lot of it natural to Florida, since we usually are swampy or swamp level, right at sea level. But it's a really cool experience. Not completely so much educational. I mean, you will learn things, but it's just fun to walk through. It is an outdoor park, so maybe this one would be better to visit in off-season where it's just a little bit cooler, because it is an outdoor trail. But that's not the only thing it offers. It offers a fossil dig, a gem mining experience, a museum with exhibits, a fish pond, and of course a gift shop. They add new dinosaurs every now and then, maybe one or two each year. Of course, they have to build them on site because they're huge. They're dinosaurs. And then, of course, they give facelifts to the older dinosaurs. The park really does sound really, really cool. I've, again, never been. This is my bucket list. I looked at pictures. It kind of takes me back to when I was little and Jurassic Park came out. You just wanted to walk among the dinosaurs. It sounds really fun. It costs $17 for adults, $12 for kids 3 to 11, and $15 for guests 60 and up. And you can also buy annual passes to walk the dinosaurs year-round. But you can also buy passes for the excavation and the gem dig sites, so you can be that explorer for the day. The park is near Tampa, closer to Tampa than Orlando, but it does offer something to do away from the busy cities or the beaches. It's definitely a family-friendly thing. You can go just as a solo person and walk around and enjoy your afternoon. It's definitely on my bucket list, and I'm kind of excited to go one day, and I'm sure you guys will hear about it when I go. So the next stop on our trip is on the other side of Tampa. It's actually in a town called Dunedin. Dunedin is named after the Scottish Gaelic name for Edinburgh, and it is an amazing little town. I used to live near Dunedin, and I would go all the time. I love it. It is just north of Clearwater and south of Palm Harbor, kind of sandwiched in between. It's right on the Intercoastal. They have an amazing downtown. Shout out to Crown and Bull. Love that place. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about restaurants eventually. Side note, though, they also have a lot of craft breweries there. You should definitely go check them out. Shout out to Seventh Son. No, they're not supporting this. If they want to, though, that's totally fine. But it's just a fun place, and I do love it there. But we're actually going to talk about a hidden gem in Dunedin. We're going to talk about an amazing museum that most people don't even realize is there, and it sits right off Main Street. I'm talking about the Penny Lane. It's a it is a Beatles museum to the British Fab Four. And it is home to anything and everything Beatles. It is a private collection that one man amassed. It's actually really cool. It contains rare memorabilia that includes the original stage costumes and even samples of their hair. The walls and cases are filled with anything and everything Beatles. A set of the vintage yellow submarine puppets, signed guitars, and even a pair of John Lennon's glasses sit among the collection. They also have original documents from the group. Now, the museum is free to visitors. It does let people get a glimpse into Beatlemania that took over the world from around the 1960s until their breakup in the 70s. It's only open a few days a week. It's just a fun stop. It's something different to do. I did not realize the museum existed for a couple months when we lived up there because it's really a place you would walk by and not give it a second glance. It's on the upstairs of a 2-story building. But definitely give it a glimpse. It's something fun. It's something different. And everybody's probably heard a Beatles song, so at least you know who it is. But yeah, definitely give it a check out if you ever want somewhere fun to go to Dunedin, do the museum, eat the food in the restaurants, visit the breweries, and just have a nice Florida day. So the next place we're going to talk about, I haven't been to yet, but after seeing pictures, this is definitely on my list. I'm talking about the Venetian pool in the Coral Gables area. Actually, it is in Coral Gables. It was built in 1924, and it was created from an old coral rock quarry. Say that fast. And it was built there because it was abandoned a few years earlier in 1921. So when Coral Gables was being set up, it was set up as a Venetian-style city, and this is just a great addition to it. It is the largest freshwater pool in the U.S., and it's a main tourist attraction for the city. It is on the list of National Register of Historic Places. And one thing I found really cool about this is the pool is drained every day to keep the water fresh. It goes back into the aquifers, filtered, and comes back into the pool every morning. But the pool was drained for concerts. You just imagine going and seeing an orchestra playing in the bottom of a pool. Something about that just sounds so cool to me. If they ever do it again, maybe I'll get tickets and go. It is in a Venetian style to match the surrounding city. It has gone through many stages of existence with things being added and taken away to create what it is today. They even had gondolas at one point, which would dock at the island. Now I think that'd be really cool. Take a gondola ride through a pool. So now that you get that idea, it's a really big pool. They even had high dive platforms that were featured there in the past. Those are gone today. It does still feature its grand waterfall. That just adds to the ambience of the scenery, and it's built in the Venetian style, so it just kind of gives you a feel of you're not in the middle of a Florida city when you're at the pool. The pool does range from 4 to 8 feet at its deepest, which is by the waterfall. They do have 2 kiddie pools that are about 2 feet deep. Of course, lifeguards are on duty at all times. They want everyone to have a fun, safe day. And it does feature that island. It still has the island, and it's got palm trees to complete the looks. If you're not so much a pool person, there is a grotto area because there's natural filled caves nearby, so springs, and you can look at those. There is a sunbathing area. Remember your sunscreen. And of course, a walking area around the complex. They also rent out a cafe for weddings and receptions. I did see pictures of this. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. So anybody getting married, keep this in mind. And the poolage itself is just stunning. It's such clear, beautiful water. Like I said, it is drained every night and filtered, put in the aquifer, and then refilled the next day to maintain the clean, fresh water. It is run by the city of Coral Gables, and they do let people enjoy this year-round. If you're in Coral Gables and you're a resident, the rate was super cheap. If you're not, like most of us, and you're a tourist, it'll cost you about $20 and $15 for kids. But it's an unforgettable swimming experience, and they do have a concession stand, so you can make a full day out of this. And it just looks so cool. I plan on going, so I'm sure you guys will hear about it when I go. But even the pool itself, it just looks like such a beautiful place with the care they took to build it and the architect around it. All right, so the next place we're going to talk about I've been to, and it's actually one of my favorite places in Florida, and it's in Key West. I am talking about the Hemingway House and Museum. And I love this place because Hemingway is an amazing writer, but also there are cats. There are so many cats at this house, you guys. And they're six-toed. They have little thumbs. As you can tell now, I'm a cat lover. But the home did belong to Ernest Hemingway when he lived in Key West in the 1920s. He was gifted the house by a family member, and it's become a famous house on the island for two reasons. The first is that Hemingway did live there. He actually wrote a couple of his masterpieces there, including A Farewell to Arms and part of For Whom the Bell Tolls and The Green Hills of Africa. Hemingway was also said to develop his love of fishing while there and made friends that would go on to inspire his To Have and Have Not novel. What a way to memorialize friendship as a book. A really good novel, too, by the way. The house does contain memorabilia from the 20 years that he lived in the house. It still contains one of his typewriters, as well as hunting trophies from his trips to Africa. The house also features a beautiful garden and an in-ground pool, which is another thing that made the house famous. That was an unusual thing for the 1930s and an absolute luxury. And the reason it's so unusual in Key West is because Key West is a big coral rock. That's what the island is. And so the money spent just to dig a 10-foot deep pool was so expensive at that time. I think it said $20,000 in that time, which is way more than now. The pool also has a cool little thing on it that's said to be Hemingway's last penny. And there's actually a penny embedded in the cement. When he apparently threw a fit to his wife, he said something along the lines of, well, you've cost me all my money. Well, you might as well have my last penny, and threw it down. So now, whether it was being cheeky or not, there's a penny in the concrete. And you can still see it to this day. The house is an absolutely beautiful house on its own, but it does give a great glimpse into Hemingway's life, especially during that time, and what a house would have looked like in the mid-1900s. But we still have to talk about the most interesting part to me. We have to talk about the fact that over 50 to 60 cats live here, and they're named Pablo Picasso, Harry Truman, and Audrey Hepburn, to name a few. And of course, they keep that tradition because Hemingway, whenever he would get a cat to go with the house, he would name it a famous person, whether it be a literary or a real person. And so they've continued that tradition today. And of course, the cats are polydactyl, which means that they have 6 toes or thumbs, look like they were little mittens. He was said to have been gifted a 6-toed cat named Snow White from a sea captain in the area. And they believe that most of the cats on their estate today are from this one cat. And yes, the cats are taken care of. There's a veterinarian on site. They are spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and well taken care of. The house is open for tours 365 days a year. It's a 20 to 30 minute guided tour through the house and the grounds. They only accept cash for the tours, which I thought was really strange, but I mean, I guess it makes sense. So don't forget to carry your cash. It's $16 for adults, $6 for kids over 5. Now, one cool experience they also have at the house is that you can actually book the house for 3 hours to enjoy a Hemingway home writer's experience, where you can be inspired by the house, the cats, the writing studio, the grounds, the pool, the gardens, and it's only $1,500. I mean, I might pay $1,500 just to walk around the house by myself if I had the money. But the house is there to inspire people, and especially aspiring writers and artists. You can imagine Hemingway himself writing things or sitting at his typewriter or even sitting out by the pool, gathering inspiration from the sounds of the town or the smell of salt water or being yelled at by his 6-toed overlords of cats. Either way, it's a fun place to stop on your trip to Florida. I definitely recommend it. Not too educational, just a little bit of fun. The next stop is Tarpon Springs. Yeah, I said a whole town, Tarpon Springs. And it's known for its sponge docks and Greek heritage. It's a very historical city in Florida, and it actually has the largest percentage of Greek Americans in the U.S. Now, the city's industry started in the 1880s, and that's when the local sponge businesses were founded. The industry actually grew so much that people from Key West and the Bahamas settled there to process and fish for sponges. Not gonna lie, I did not realize that sponges were what they were until I went there one day and learned about them. It's really cool. I was surprised at what I learned. But the Greek immigrants also settled in the area to work in the industry because that was what they were used to back home. And in 1905, a technique of sponge diving was introduced to Tarpon that brought more divers and more crews from Greece. And with the introduction of this diving technique, it changed the industry and became one of the leading maritime industries in Florida. Now, you can visit Tarpon, and they have the sponge docks, and you can actually learn about all this. You can even take a tour that'll take you out, show you how the crews work, watch a guy put on a dive suit and actually go down and dive for sponges. And that's really helped grow Tarpon Springs. The sponge docks are an amazing place. You can walk around and just feel the culture of the area. It's got some amazing restaurants, bakeries, and of course it's got Spongerama. No, I didn't find SpongeBob there. I looked, but maybe you guys will. If you do, you gotta let me know if you find him. No, it's a really cool place. It's a museum shop that you can go and see the history of diving and fishing of sponges, learn about how they process them, and it was cool. It was not what I expected. But yeah, all this helped put Tarpon on the map, and it wasn't just a place for winter homes for Northerners. It became an actual city that held its own, and it still exists today. But the other good part about Tarpon is not just the docks. You can actually walk down through a historical little downtown area, and it's beautiful. The architecture is just amazing. The people are so nice, and you'll find more amazing restaurants and bakeries downtown, but you can also see a shrine to St. Michael that was said to do miracles, like modern day miracles. I've seen the shrine. I did not go in it, unfortunately, but it's just a really cool building. Definitely be respectful while you're there. You can also see St. Nicholas's Greek Orthodox Church. Continue on through the historic district of the downtown. Again, pass by wonderful restaurants and bakeries. You can also go to 2 beaches in Tarpon. I didn't realize Tarpon was this big until we lived up there, and shout out to my best friend Jessica, who's from there, showed me all this. But yeah, you go to Fred Howard or Sunset Beach Park. The town is a really cool place to visit. It's kind of like the earlier town I mentioned in Dunedin. You go, you make a whole day out of it, you learn something you never thought you would learn, and you have fun memories. So sometimes roadside attractions aren't just one place, but they can be towns. Now, the next place we're going to talk about is a little further south, and it's not really off the road. Well, it's more like really off the road. I'm talking about Jules Undersea Lodge in Key Largo. Yes, it's a lodge under the sea, and you have to dive to stay there. Now, it was originally a research module out of Puerto Rico, but it was brought here, and it was put into the Emerald Lagoon in Key Largo. It's about 30 feet underwater, and you do have to dive to get to it. Now, you're thinking, okay, I don't know how to dive. Don't worry, they have classes. They'll teach you, because you have to be a certified diver to get down to it since it is so far down below. But they will certify you and let you stay there overnight. It's actually, I went all through this. It's really, really cool. You get to see the module. You get to spend the night underwater and watch the manatees swim by. But you get hot pizza. Yes, they will deliver you hot pizza underwater. That's so cool. But yeah, so it's just a really cool place. I know you're thinking, okay, roadside, but it's kind of off the road, right, guys? I mean, it just sounds so fun. But yeah, so if you stay at the lodge, you go in through a moon pool entrance, which means you kind of walk off the ground, and then you store your gear, and you go into some staterooms where you can hang out or stay overnight, and they provide snacks and sodas and water, basically anything you would need while you were down there. And if you really want to upgrade, because it's not just cool enough to stay overnight underneath the water, you can even get lobster or filet mignon dinner, right? Just go all out. They do have a window that you can see the world float by as you hang out and watch TV. Yes, they have internet. You can see manatees, barracudas, seahorses, blue tang, snappers, and parrotfish, to name a few of the things you would see. But it's not cheap. For 2 people for the night, it's $13.50. But I'm definitely sure it's worth it. I mean, just to say you've done it alone is amazing. But if you don't want to stay the night and you just want to be able to say that you did it and hung out and maybe enjoy pizza, you can book a experience for a couple hours. For 2 people, it's $380, and you dive down. You hang out in the stateroom, and you get to get fresh hot pizza underwater. I think that's pretty cool on its own. and everybody loves to go to the Keys, so why not do something even more enjoyable from the Keys? The next roadside attraction that we're going to talk about sits a little bit ways from most major cities in Florida, but it's worth the visit. I've been to this one, and it's beautiful. I'm talking about Bok Tower and Gardens. If you're from Central Florida, you've probably heard about it before. Its official name is Bok Mountain Lake Sanctuary and Singing Tower, which is why most of us just call it Bok Tower. And it sits in Lake Wales, Florida. It actually sits on Iron Mountain. Fun fact, did not know Florida had an actual mountain until researching this. Even though I've been there, I didn't know it was a mountain. It sits 295 feet above sea level, and it is one of Florida's highest points. Now, the tower itself was actually built in 1927, and it has a 60-bell carillon. I did not know what a carillon was. Still not completely sure. I had to Google it. It's apparently a system of bells that you play on like a keyboard type thing, and it rings. You've seen them in the tops of churches. Like if you ever go by a church or to a church and you see all these bells, that's a carillon. Didn't know that. Fun fact. Learn that now. But this one has a 60-bell carillon, and if you've ever heard it, it's absolutely beautiful to listen to. The gardens and tower were built by Edward and Mary Louise Bok after absolutely falling in love with the area. They used to spend the winters in Lake Wales, and they wanted to make a home there and to enjoy it year-round. They wanted to build a bird sanctuary and gardens on the spot that they fell in love with. They planted hundreds of oak trees, azaleas, palms, magnolias, and gordonias. Probably didn't say that right, but it's a beautiful flower. And they were planted in the area to create the gardens, the reflection pools, and they even wanted to introduce flamingos into the ponds. If anybody's been to the Lake Wales area, you know it still gets pretty cold in the winter in that area. So flamingos weren't the greatest addition. You do see swans there a lot now, but the flamingos, unfortunately, did not make it. The garden and tower are also home to the Library of Carillons that we talked about, and it's possibly one of the largest collections in the world. The library does sit inside the tower, and there's also an archive in the tower of scrapbooks, photographs, manuscripts, and family possessions. It is a beautiful tower. Unfortunately, you're not allowed inside of it, but just to go up and look at it, it's just a magnificently beautiful structure, especially to walk around the gardens. You feel peace, you feel serene, you understand why these people fell in love with this place. The estate is also home to Pinewood Estate, which is a 20-room mansion that is in a Mediterranean style that was built in the 1930s. This house was actually built by Charles Buck, not the box, but Mr. Buck, who also loved horticulture and commissioned his gardens from the same people who did the ones at Bok Tower. And his gardens are equally as beautiful. Of course, there's not a big tower sitting in the middle of them, but to be around this house, they're absolutely stunning. The estate and the tower were purchased and kept in the Bok Tower estate so that you can visit them together. They're impressive. It's just a beautiful area. You get to look over the hills and you can look down on the groves, especially the palm trees and the citrus groves, and it's beautiful. I definitely recommend going here. There is also a 1.5 mile long trail through the preserve. Of course, it's a 1.5 mile long preserve. Yep, but there's a trail through it. Sorry, guys. And it takes you through longleaf pine forest. Now, the part about this is really cool is because it resembles a savanna more than the Florida that you're used to seeing. And that's because it sits just a little bit higher off the ground than most of Florida. And it is really strange. When you drive through it, you go from this lush garden to this savanna type area that you're like, okay, where's like the palm trees and stuff? And it's different. And it's kind of cool that you get to go from one area to the next to the part you're used to as you drive down the small incline. It's definitely one to walk around, look at wildlife, take in the horticulture. And it just makes up a beautiful attraction in Florida that most people actually don't even know about because it does sit so far away from any major cities. It's peaceful, and I recommend going there. I recommend going there and enjoying your whole day. Take a picnic and just stroll through the gardens, do the trails, visit the other house, the estate, and just enjoy the nature that is Florida, and it takes you off the beaten path. So the next place we're going to talk about is one of the original roadside attractions, and it's still popular even to this day. I'm talking about Weeki Wachee and their mermaids. Weeki Wachee was an original roadside attraction that opened its doors in 1947 and has attracted visitors all over the world and even people who want to be mermaids. The spring is on 538 acres, and it is one of the deepest springs in North America. It is naturally occurring, and not only is it known for being naturally occurring, but it's also got mermaids, you guys. Who doesn't want to go see mermaids? It is a spring created from the Weeki Wachee River, and Mr. Newt Perry decided to invest in this spring and create the Weeki Wachee Mermaid Show that we see today. He did this after he invented a new way of breathing underwater. And the way he did it is it's more of like a hose of oxygen that goes down, and you learn how to inhale it to keep your breath underwater. And he did this by teaching women how to hold their breath, use the new way of breathing, and create these wonderful synchronized shows. And it just kind of reminds us of the charms and the simplicities of old Florida. Now, the shows do tell about the history of the springs. They do put on synchronized dances, and it's just a stunning backdrop to these shows because you get to see the inside of the springs. They're put on a theater that sits about 20 feet below the surface with large windows for you to see the mermaids. And it does sit above a natural aquifer that puts on over 170 million gallons of fresh water a day. And it's beautifully clear water. You can also go on a riverboat cruise, kayaking, snorkeling, and tubing. None of those suit you. There's also a freshwater water park called Buccaneer Bay, complete with water slides and a large pool that you can swim or snorkel in. The park does sit in the Weeki Wachee State Park. It is run by the Parks Department. No, I have never seen Leslie Knope there. Maybe one day. But you can go and enjoy all the fun that nature has to offer there. The park also has mermaid camps, because who doesn't want to learn to be a mermaid? And it's helped to keep people's imaginations alive to this day. The fees are $13 for an adult, $8 for kids 6 through 12, and of course the Littlest Mermaids get in free. I recommend this for everybody. Who doesn't want to go see a mermaid or imagine that they're a mermaid for a day? It's fun. It's old Florida. It's something simple, but yet so much fun for, the whole family, or just if you want to go by yourself. So the next roadside attraction probably didn't mean to start out as a roadside attraction, but it's ended up there today. I'm talking about Solomon's Castle in Ona, Florida. The castle was built from aluminum printing plates, and it even has a moat. It was started in 1974 by Howard Solomon. He used the aluminum printing plates after they were thrown out by the local newspaper company. The castle has evolved into a 3-story castle that covers over 12,000 square feet. It even has a courtyard filled with sculptures from discarded auto parts and a 60-foot replica of a 16th century Portuguese galleon that is now known as the Moat Restaurant. The castle has had many unique features added to it, such as 80 stained glass windows and other metal sculptures. The most recent addition was a lighthouse added to the moat that has stained glass and even a pavilion so people can enjoy sitting outside the restaurant and eating in an open air area. Now, Mr. Solomon has since passed, but his family continues the tradition of castle tours and showing off his proud work to this day. You can visit the workshop and gallery in the castle, or you can just go and eat at the restaurant. The grounds are free. The tours do cost. And the prices vary depending on if you want to see the castle or the castle and his gallery. I looked at the menu for the restaurant, and I was surprised. It actually offers a wide range of food at really good prices, and I looked on TripAdvisor, and the food looks really appetizing. This is definitely something I'm going to add to my list of things to do in Florida. But I think it would be a fun place to go just to walk around, especially the stained glass, and, see one man's love of sculpting. Maybe it'll even inspire some creativity of your own. All right, the last attraction we're going to talk about is also one of the oldest and oldest and continuously running attractions in Florida. So, of course, it's in the oldest city in Florida. I'm talking about St. Augustine's own Alligator Farm and Zoological Park. The park opened in 1893, but it wasn't essentially a park at first. It actually began as a minor attraction on St. Augustine Beach at the end of a railway that ran through Anastasia Island. The alligators were added just a way to get people through the small museum and to buy souvenirs, but soon the reptiles became their own main attraction. And the growing popularity caused the park to move to open and to become what it currently is today. And it is still a main attraction here. And it was added to the National Registry of Historic Places in 1992, just 1 year before its 100th birthday. Now, the park is the only place that you can see every species of crocodile, as well as alligators, caiman, and, okay, probably not going to say this right, but Gharial, Gharial. You guys can Google it. Never going to say that one right. But those are apparently really cool, and you can see them at the park as well. They've also expanded to include exotic monkeys and birds, and of course other reptiles such as snakes. They're known for having exotic animals, so they usually have things that aren't found in other zoos, such as hornbills, cassowaries, marabous, and other exotic birds. They've even added a Komodo dragon and saltwater crocodiles to their exhibits. The park allows people an up-close experience with these reptiles, that you can learn about them, you can feed the alligators, or you can even go ziplining over them if you're feeling super adventurous. I'm going to leave that one to you guys. They do have shows, as well as teach you about reptiles that are often misunderstood, such as snakes. But it keeps people's love of these animals and appreciation of these animals going. And the park does continue to evolve and grow to this day to keep up with demands and times. And I doubt that this attraction will ever close. Every time you drive by, there is a line out the door to get into this place. And it's just another cool thing you can do in St. Augustine. You can do it for the whole family, or you can just go walk down there by yourself. I mean, I don't recommend walking. It's a little bit of ways from downtown, but you can go there by yourself if you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of downtown. It's actually really close to the lighthouse, so you could even make a day of those two attractions. And yes, we'll talk about the lighthouse another day. But Florida has so many attractions that draw people here for the beaches and theme parks. But let's not forget other smaller attractions do exist. Just to name a few, I know that there's the Gatorland in Orlando. Of course, Orlando has a bunch of small roadside attractions. iDrive is its own thing. There's forts up in Pensacola that you could go visit. It's just really any part of Florida you go to, there's going to be some smaller attraction that's probably got a good history behind it and probably something you never thought you would experience. But my favorite Florida roadside attraction is one that you see every day and you rarely think to stop at. Of course, I'm talking about the mom and pop gift shops, the fruit stands, the ones where you can buy popcorn, peanuts, and candy. And yes, that was for you, Matthew. But the ones that you go in and you get to meet the locals and you get to buy the memorabilia that you wouldn't find anywhere else. The magnet from Florida where Florida's slightly crooked, or the t-shirt that might not be tie-dyed completely right. But these places are often overlooked, but you definitely need to check them out. They deserve their own right. And the fruit and the vegetables are usually absolutely amazing and much cheaper than you'd find in a store. So go meet the locals. Go to these small attractions that remind us of old Florida and just the charm of it. Because those attractions are why people created these in the first place. They're making a living, and they wanted to, get their products out there to people. That's why we have roadside attractions today. But even if you don't, the idea of getting lost in a mermaid show, or walking among the dinosaurs, or experiencing nature in some well-preserved gardens absolutely has its own place in memories and vacations. So next time you go to Florida, or if you're in Florida, and you just want to go somewhere and take a road trip, go enjoy one of these small places. But you know what we also need to remember, other than when we're in Florida, these roadside attractions and visiting? We need to remember not to turn into Florida Man, okay? Nobody wants to be Florida Man. Today we're going to talk about Florida Man from 2012. It's an old one, but definitely a good one. A Florida man was arrested for calling 911 numerous times after being denied entry into a strip club with his kitten. I am talking about the one with 4 paws, 2 ears, and meows a lot. All right, I'll let you guys make your own jokes for the other one. But he felt so violated that he could not bring his cat with him that he had to call 911. Now, of course, he got arrested. 911, guys, is for emergencies only. And there are so many jokes you can make about this here, but, just don't do that. Don't turn into Florida Man. Don't call 911 unless it's for an emergency. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of That Florida Feeling on Roadside Attractions. Hopefully I've taught you some that you didn't know about or giving you a new idea for a vacation. There are many that dot the Sunshine State. Maybe you'll stumble upon one of your own. If you find one that you really like, let me know about it. I would love to hear about it. Again, thanks Jessica for tarping, Jamie for the help with the topic, and of course Matthew for reminding me that fruit stands are their own attraction. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget to email me at thatfloridafeel@gmail.com with any suggestions or just to say hi. Also, don't forget to send me your Florida listener stories. I still want to do a listener episode, so I kind of need your stories, guys. I do want to give a quick shout out to another Florida podcast. It's called Florida Men on Florida Man. There's some really nice guys. They have some really cool topics. Go give them a check out. Just remember, when you do find a podcast that you like, don't forget to follow, listen, subscribe, like, and tell people about it. That really helps us out as podcasters, and it helps us to know that you guys want to hear what we're talking about. You can find them on Spotify, just like you can find me on Spotify. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great week. If you're in Florida, hurricane prep. If you're out of Florida, laugh about the fact that the hurricane's called Elsa and she just wants to go home. I hope you guys have a great week. And, of course, that's your daily dose of sunshine.